Okay, today, anatomy. Hey, we got to anatomy. Cool, cool. Okay, what's our first tool? First tool is reference. Reference. Arnold. This guy. I don't know his name. This guy. Okay? We just picked them out. You can go on the internet. These guys are all over the internet. You just get them. Okay? You need a pose. Get one of these guys. Find a pose that looks like what you want to do. Then do it. That doesn't mean that you're going to find it's just standing there. Just standing there is not necessarily what you're going to want, but you can find lots of poses. So you can use parts of one, parts of another. Doesn't matter. But you're going to get good anatomy. Guess why? Because these are human beings. Human beings. Up in here, what's in your head, not human, okay? It's just a bunch of lines. What you think it looks like, this is what it looks like. This is why you get these things. There's an interesting little book here. My son did it. He did it, Anatomy for Sculptors, okay? Lots of stuff in here, very interesting. Shows you where the muscles are, all the rest of it, okay? Where did he get it from? Photos from guys who were bodybuilders. They're not necessarily bodybuilders. Well, they are bodybuilders, aren't they? Okay, you want to get Spider Creation, Spider's Anatomy book. There's other anatomy books. This breaks it down and makes it very clinical. It's very good. I don't necessarily recommend it because I'm not supposed to recommend my son's stuff, but in fact, it's very good. You can also go on the internet and you can get things like this. What's good about this? Well, it tells you the names of these muscles, many of which I haven't memorized. I know the trapezius and the quadriceps and all the rest, but it gives you the names of the muscle. But you cannot trust these. You cannot trust these because very often the people who do these things are not very good at what they're doing. I'll give you an example. This guy here, pectoralis majoralis. Okay, pectoralis, that's the pecs, what they call the pecs. That's the chest muscles, okay? See them right there? Okay, you're going to get a close-up of that. Trouble with that is it's wrong. It's wrong. I mean, you get this on the internet, you go, well, that must be the way it looks. So I'm going to show you something. This is a much better piece of anatomy right here. Pectoralis majoralis. You notice this muscles up here and then the ones underneath. See that? If you relax that chest, you get a little bit more like that. Okay? Or a little bit more like that. But if you tighten the chest by raising the arm, then you get that. Now what's happened? The muscle under this pectoralis majoralis, these straighten out. These go across, these straighten out. And we're going to talk about these things. So this piece of reference that I showed you is cockamamie wrong. This is wrong. That's wrong. Muscles do not go like that. Muscles go like this. Like that. Okay? Here's another thing on the chart that's bad. Okay? Here is the chest, sternum. Okay? And here's the stomach muscles. You notice how the stomach muscles are right on the sternum? They're not. This is wrong. When you look it up, you can't necessarily depend on it. That's why you have these things. Reference, real reference. I'm going to show you that area right there. That area right there is right there. You notice the pectoralis majoralis hits the chest and the ribs and the sternum. And then there's this space. There's a rib. And then the stomach muscles start. Now, if you bulge these stomach muscles and you work them out, they start to, they bulge out, but there's still that space between the pectoralis majoralis and the stomach muscles. Is it in here? No, it's wrong. So you go ahead and follow that and you're screwed up. Because then you get the pecs on top of the stomach muscles. It's wrong. Okay, so you can't necessarily depend on these diagrams for what you're doing. You have to look at reference. Okay, remember the space we just talked about? Pectoralis majoralis, then that space, then the stomach muscles. And some people have a greater space, some people have a lesser space. Let me see what I have here. Okay, here's a little bit more. You can see it right there. That space, not in this one. It's in this one, because this is correct. Now, we talked about muscles and what they connect with, and we pointed out, and I believe we did, that muscles are connected to bones. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that muscles are always connected to bones. It means that they're connected to bones in general, okay? But things may cause it to seem like they might not be connected to bones. Now, here's stomach muscles here. You see this? The stomach muscles are connected here, and then they're connected to the hip bone. But you see these striations in between? And you see that in between right there? Those are ligaments that hold the muscles apart and allow them to curve with your body. Because if they didn't curve with your body, when you tighten these muscles and you bent over, this would stick out. So it's like when you work out, okay? When you work out, this is not a connection to a bone. That's not a connection to a bone. This is not a connection. That's a connection to a bone. That's a connection to a bone down here. But these striations, these ligaments that go across here, bind it together like a caterpillar. So this is bound to the side, to these muscles over here, okay? And they're bound to these muscles over here. So there's a certain amount of muscle into muscle and being bound by ligament that allow for this to happen. Does not happen in the arm, does not happen in the leg, does not happen in the neck or the cheek that we already talked about. So you have to study anatomy. You can't just like, oh, here's a picture of a guy with muscles and then go ahead and do that. You have to study, you have to look at it and say, oh, what's this connected to? How does that work? How does that muscle come across like that? For example, if you didn't do that, and somebody held their arm like this, and then they held their arm like this, almost 360 degrees, how would you connect the muscles? The muscles have to be connected, and they have to spiral around the arm. Well, you have to know where they're connected and then where they're connected again, and what happens as the arm spirals around. So drawing them in these exercises, even if you do it yourself in the mirror and you take some photographs and you start moving your body around, it's not necessarily how the muscles are connected to the bones, although it's incredibly important. It is how the body moves, and the muscles move in sympathy with the body. One of the reasons why so many comic book artists just draw guys standing there, they don't even turn their heads. They're just always looking forward, and they turn their body and look like this, and they go like this, is they don't understand the anatomy. If they don't understand the anatomy, then they just drew guys standing there or punching each other. There's no twisting, no turning, the muscles don't move. That's why some people know how to draw anatomy correctly and in movement, and other people have no idea. So what you have to do is you have to study anatomy. You have to study how, and the best way to study it is not by looking at these things. This is a good way to know where the muscles are and the bones are. Now, well, not that one in particular, but this here, this kind of stuff. Also, books that have anatomy studies in them, so you can see the various movements of how the bones work and how the muscles attach to the bones in movement. Okay? For example, you need to get used to the idea that an arm, when it's in a relaxed position and it straightens out, this muscle bunches up. That's how you get this cut over here. Okay, I'm not going to show you the cut. I'm not going to take my head. But you don't get that cut until you tighten the arm that way. Well, it seems the opposite of the way it ought to be. But what's happening is the muscle that's underneath here, this muscle, okay, is tightening and pulling that muscle together. But you have to study that. Same thing with the bicep. The bicep, okay, is long. It connects here and under here, and then you tighten it, and it gets bigger and bounces up like that. This is the difference between a relaxed muscle and a tense muscle, or a muscle in one position or another position. So if I go like this and you see my bicep over here, you need to know what happens when I turn my arm to that same bicep. Where did it go? It's not up here anymore. down here. It twisted down. You have to draw that. You should be doing exercises in how that stuff is drawn. When I do a drawing for you, and I understand that you like to have me do drawings or artists to do drawings in front of you, and you like to look at the drawings being drawn, because you know what? It's fun to look at artists drawing drawings. It has nothing to do with what you're learning. I will draw it, and I'll be glad to do it, but it'll be in one pose. You're not really learning a lot from that. You get some idea, but you're not going to really. You really need to study not just bodybuilders, but also athletes in action. You can make a collection. You know, back in the last generation, they called it a morgue. You get photographs and you put them in files of a morgue. You get athletes running. You get athletes jumping, doing the broad jump, doing the long jump, pulling a bow and arrow, whatever it is that they're doing, bowling. And you see their muscles working, and you understand how their muscles work. So we're going to switch to the drawing table, and we're going to do a drawing of a comic book superhero, which I'm sure you're here for, and we'll show how the muscles work and interact. Okay, here's a rough sketch that we're going to work over. We got all our reference around us, like we're like good boys and good girls. I'm going to start working. So, of course, we're going to cross the eyes. I put the line across the middle of the eye. What do you think we're going to do? We're going to do Batman in the end, because pretty much a guy in spandex. Okay. They'll probably end up doing Batman. Maybe a slightly more realistic Batman. So, again, we have our reference, and we'll put shadow on this side of the face a little bit over here. And we'll skip this a little bit and go down to the anatomy. Okay. This is the thorax and this is the throat. That's protected by these muscles, which come around and they connect in here. And now we have the trapezius, that's up in here, what they call the traps. Okay, and they connect in here into the shoulder, right there. And basically this is a bone right on the top, because of course they have to attach to something. And we're going to make a little dip in there. According to however powerful you are, you have less or more dip. Right? So it's down. This is a bone right there. That's a bone right there. See that? Right there. This is the muscle coming off the bone. We've basically got a number of shapes in the chest, but basically three. You got this right across here. Then you have this right across here. And then remember we spoke about this at the beginning. You have this coming up here and attaching up in here. Now when this relaxes, it gets to be nice and comfortable, but when it's tight, it does that. Or it goes like that. It's always good to put a little tension on it, because then it doesn't look quite so feminine. It looks more masculine. You know what I'm saying? You don't want to get too, hangy. It's a little weird. Okay, these shoulder muscles, you can see this here. This is the front, one in the front, one in the middle, and one on the back. So we're just indicating the one on the back there. So this is three muscles. That's why they call this the deltoid? Okay. They don't call it the deltoid. They call it the deltoid, but it's really three muscles. You have, this is the deltoid. But there's three muscles here. Say this. So this, you can see hidden here, goes and attaches to the arm and allows you to raise your arm with that kind of strength. Okay. So you want to, there's your, now this doesn't come quite to the corner of the elbow. And people work out, very often they leave a space between here, and they leave a greater space according to certain exercises that they do, and it's always nice to leave that little space there because it makes it seem more powerful. Now remember, we talked about that muscle in the forearm before. Okay, that muscle in the forearm, because we have the hand turned around, we're going to wrap it around that way. Okay, so obviously looks like he's going to pick up something. Now, what I didn't do here, and I probably should have done, is going back to the skeleton. We can do the skeleton later. All of these muscles attach to bones, but all of these muscles attach also to the skeleton. And the skeleton in an adult male is more or less like this. It doesn't taper at the top and go wider, or at the bottom. It's pretty much even. It's the muscles that give it the V shape. Okay? I guess we should put this on his chest just to get some idea of where we're going. Right there, we think? What do we think? There we go. Now, since I've done that kind of Frank Miller bat, I'm going to have to make him a little bit thicker, because that Frank Miller character is a little bit thicker, right? There we go. Okay, we'll flip this back, flip that back, and we'll take care of that later. Okay. Now this has come down like this. This goes in between, not quite like that. Okay. These are these little muscles in here. You see these? These are 2 rows of muscles. They go on the ribs. Okay, that's what tastes so good when you're getting those ribs. There's, I'm going to make it mark it off here. See this? And they kind of weave together like that. Actually, it's a good idea to draw on some of these photographs so you can figure things out. Okay, so now we're starting to get a Batman-like character. Who is anatomically quite a specimen, if I may make an editorial comment, because he is not a superhero like most superheroes. He is a real regular guy who works out his body, and he must have really good anatomy compared to the other guys, because it's a real human being. Okay. I'm gonna have to have some kind of a raffle to give this away. Maybe I'll ink it. Would that be good? Okay. Remember these muscles in here? Right. Now the hard work is really basically up to you. And also the fingers have to be given length. This is the longest finger, longest upper finger. This is the second, this is the third, this is the fourth. So when you do these, you know, this is the longest, the second, that's the third, and that's the fourth, and usually that wraps tighter. So it pulls in like that. It's not just straight across. Okay, how many of you make it straight across? Not good. There's even professionals that make it straight across. Same thing with this. Starts to tuck in, tucks in like that. And count your digits when you're making fingers and thumbs and hands. 1, 2, 3. Batman is saying, why am I posing here for you? I don't understand. Okay. Let's count our muscles. A little hard to see on this guy. 1 set, 2 sets, 3 sets, 4 sets. This is the big one. This is the big set down here. 1 set, 2 sets, 3 sets, and the big one down here, 4. Okay, everybody's like that. Start counting these things. Let's do it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Big one. Let's don't forget, your belt hits on your 3rd set. This is the short set. This is the big set. 3rd set. Okay, 4th set. I know you get ribs going across. You get these stomach muscles going across these drawings all the time. Can't figure out where they are. Okay. This is your 1st set. Goes up to here. Like that. 2nd set. 3rd set, 4th set, right there. This, we know what that is. Okay, now we're down to legs. We really should attack the legs in our next go-around, but I'm just going to do them roughly now. And if you have any questions, write your questions in, and I'll answer them as we go along. This one here, the inside one, comes down further than this outside one, and you usually see this as a big kind of teardrop shape. This muscle goes across here, and that becomes this. Okay, across here like that. Very powerful muscle, because it holds your upper leg together, keeps everything constrained. Although bodybuilders seem to build out, and it kind of bubbles over it. That's not a very attractive look for an athlete. Okay for a bodybuilder. There we go. Now your knee, very hard. Okay, remember, your knee is very hard. So your knee has a lot of bone in it. It also has this right here. Right here. Okay, that's your kneecap. Your kneecap fits over your knee and stops your knee from popping. Okay, and it goes, and it goes down there, and it goes here. This is what you want to protect as you get older, this baby right there. And the knee underneath it, of course, is this bone ending, and these 2 bones beginning to go down. We can examine again that later. So your kneecap is a bone that has a sheath that hangs, that goes down like that, and your knee, or your bones, are under here. Those are your bones. So you have 1 large bone coming down, 2 smaller bones going down. This kneecap stopping it from popping. So since you now know why it's there, don't forget it. Okay. These go in. This one comes out. This tends to be a very minor muscle unless you're really working out, and so gives the leg some form. Skinny guys who don't work out tend to have it more like that. This is the one that you develop. So you get a lot of these kind of skinny legs. You don't want to do that. Again, you have bone down here, and you have muscles wrapping around the ankle. And I'm not going to do the feet because that's too crazy. We'll do it another time. Again, this cuts in. Now the reason this cuts in is because, and we don't see it here, there's a little ligament in here that pulls it in right there. right here like that. So that's what this is, right there. Tightens it up, like these over here. This pulls that in like that. That's why it gets its shape and form. Okay. Now, of course, Batman is posed in a very uncomfortable pose for Batman. And whether he has trunks or not, I guess, is up to Superman, trying to convince him to, let's put on the trunks again so that people don't see too much. Again, the bat, belt buckles or whatever they are. Cape. And we're starting to get toward Batman. Then, of course, we have to add shadows. We have to do all those things that comic book artists do. But basically, okay, now you have an anatomical drawing that is based on anatomy, that is based on photographic reference, okay, and then based on knowledge and learning. And all of it comes together into the anatomy of the characters that you do. And that's how we do a full figure. Now, what's special about this full figure? Well, he's standard good physique. This is the kind of physique you want to draw for your superheroes. These are also the things that you have to learn about when you change an anatomical structure. If you're doing a fat person, you're not drawing all these muscles. You're drawing lumps of fat in various places. So it is not like the muscles get bigger because the guy is fatter. The same thing with a skinny person. What you're doing is you're leaning down the muscles. That means the center area gets leaner, and so you get a muscle that does this and gets stringy, and that would be a skinny person. You see what I'm saying? Whereas fat people, okay, there's muscle, but then you put blobs of fat over the muscle, okay, to make them fat. And if they're incredibly powerful fat people, the muscle starts to come out and you start to see it, like, say, a sumo wrestler, okay. But otherwise, you get loose hanging fat. Here, you get no fat at all. It's just lean, lean, lean. This is somebody with maybe 8% body fat. He's got a certain amount of fat over his muscles. You could lean him down. He would become a slimmer guy, but then you'd have to starve him to get to this, or you'd have to have him overeat to get to this. But you have to know the differences between the fat and the lean and the muscle and the little extra body fat. The little extra body fat is what these bodybuilders have. Just this guy is probably down to about 6% body fat because he's been posed. He probably didn't eat or drink anything for 3 days. Anyway, Batman stays in a constant condition of good health, so he doesn't need the bulk of the muscle. He's like maybe a super Bruce Lee, who's always lean and always powerful, and his muscles are always on the outside. And he eats properly. He doesn't eat for competition. He eats for athletics. There's your anatomy. Next lesson, I don't know exactly. We'll be talking about it. If you have questions, please write them in. Let me know what you're curious about. And we'll move on to the next one. Who wants that drawing? There you go.